Hey, this is Group 1, and we're going to talk about Chapter 19. In this chapter, we're going to discuss some things that we could do to better prepare ourselves for accidents or incidents or catastrophic events so that we can know how to handle those events. A lot of times, unpredictable and unexpected outcomes occur, and they need to be mitigated. So we have to be skilled at detecting problems and solving them and multiplying the effect by making them solutions available throughout the organization. One main example is with Netflix. Most of their services are through Amazon Web Services. And at one point, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but there was an outage and Netflix didn't go down for even a minute because of how they prepared for it. So with Netflix, Amazon Web Services US East, the availability went down on April 21st, 2011, and which affected a lot of customers. Netflix was able to keep their services running despite this by using a loosely coupled system with aggressive timeouts for each component. Um, and yes, for each component. What they use is what they call Chaos Monkey, and they simulate failures using Chaos Monkey. So what that'll do is it'll randomly kill production servers, and engineer teams will need to use a constant level of failure in the cloud so they can prepare for a way that their systems can automatically recover without any manual intervention. By running Chaos Monkey during normal business hours, engineers were able to quickly and iteratively create a more resilient service. So, as services failed in ways that weren't predicted or imagined, they were able to recognize those instances and then build a robust system to work around that. So, this is why it's important to create a system of learning as well as how to routinely rehearse and deliberately create failures to accelerate learning in an organization. Part of learning in an organization is to create and establish a just learning culture. So a lot of people perceive accidents as an unjust incident. Someone made a mistake and it's their fault and it's not really just. So we need to perceive accidents as just when they occur. By seeing accidents as unjust, it can promote fear rather than mindfulness in people who do safety critical work. So instead of following the bad apple theory, where we eliminate the cause of a problem, for example, if an employee made a mistake, to get rid of the employee if it was a bad mistake, instead of following that type of theory, the goal is to create a learning environment and to not place blame on anyone. A quote by John Allspaw, CTO at Etsy. He says our goal at Etsy is to view mistakes, errors, slips, lapses, and so forth with a perspective of learning. So when mistakes are made, it's important to feel safe to share details about it. Punishing the engineers who make mistakes does not promote a learning atmosphere.
Okay, I'm Devin Powell, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chapter 19, and we're going to start with scheduled blameless post-mortem meetings after accidents occur. Now, this was coined by John Allspawn, and it stated basically that focus is placed on situational aspects of failures, mechanism, and the decision-making process of individuals proximate to the failure. The post-mortem is scheduled soon as possible after the accident and after it was resolved. It will achieve the following. Construct a timeline and gather details from multiple perspectives on failures. Allow engineers to give detailed accounts of their contributions to failures. Enable and encourage people to be the experts on the mistakes they made and how not to make them in the future. Accept that judgment of decisions made lie in hindsight, and propose countermeasures to prevent future accidents from happening and recording them. It's all about that culture of, once again, accidents are just, and we're not necessarily looking to blame people, but we're looking at, okay, the accident happened, so how do we solve it now? The following individuals involved in the accident should be at the meeting. And this just goes into detail on who should be involved. It's the people involved in decision that have contributed to the problem, the people who identified the problem, the people who responded to the problem, the people who diagnosed the problem, the people who were affected by the problem, and anyone else interested in attending the meeting. So basically, anyone can be there to learn in this, because it is a culture of learning that we have here, to learn from our mistakes. As many details as possible ought to be recorded, and don't blame yourself or get down on yourself for mistakes made. Instead, ask, why did it make sense to me when I took that action? It's not acceptable to be more careful or less stupid. Countermeasures must be made for if the same mistakes are made in the future. And then we move on to, I went move the slide a little early, but we move on to publish our postmortems as widely as possible. Publishing the postmortems allows the entire organization to learn from the incident and increase organizational learning. Transparency is increased with customers, which increase their trust. Etsy developed Morgue to more easily track a greater number of postmortem reports. It was designed to make it easier for the team to record the following: whether the problem was due to a scheduled or an unscheduled incident, the postmortem owner, relevant IRC chat logs, relevant JIRA tickets for corrective actions and their due dates, links to customer forum posts where customers complain about the issues, and making it easier to record incidents increased the number of recorded postmortems, which increased the organizational learning. So, decrease incident tolerances to find ever weaker failure signals. As efficiency in solving problems due to organizational learning increases, the threshold of what constitutes a problem needs to decrease. Things that were more tolerable before should now be considered intolerable. An example by NASA rather, is the Columbia Space Shuttle exploded due to a piece of insulation foam that had broken off during takeoff. Prior to re-entry, mid-level NASA engineers reported it, but they weren't heard. NASA managers were notified, but they were told that the foam issue was nothing new, so they didn't see fit to act on the problem. Organizations are typically structured in one of two models: standardized, routine and systems govern everything, and experimental, where every exercise and every piece of new information is evaluated and debated every day. Culture resembles a research and design laboratory. Trouble happens when the wrong mindset is applied in how they respond to ambiguous threats or weak failure signals. NASA's culture was a rigid, standardized culture that didn't value evaluating every piece of information. Your turn. Are you there?
We'll just wait on him. I think
Okay.
he might be talking to someone.
Okay, yeah.
Because earlier he had to talk to a
Yeah, that's fine.
soldiers.
I just want to make
I
sure that.
literally forgot to hit the unmute button, so.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Here we go. My name is Jeremiah Price, and I'm going to continue this by talking about how to redefine failure and encourage calculated risks. Calculated risk-taking allows innovation despite mistakes. An organization should reinforce that everyone feel comfortable with and responsible for surfacing and learning from failures. Don't be afraid to talk about things you do wrong. And also, don't be afraid to get help and seek learning from other people. Roy Report from Netflix found that high-performing organizations fail and make mistakes more often. Much like those who like to endeavor in BMX. They'll never be able to perform the coolest trick they know without crashing a few times and even breaking a few bones. Hashtag growing up in Castle Rock, Colorado. An employee that caused an outage twice was able to move the state of their operations and automation forward by light years. Very easy to make mistakes, own up to them, and continue on. Next is inject production failures to enable resilience and learning. Need to get my slide back up here. And here we go. Injecting failures into the system to confirm that architectural design is done properly, so failures happen in specific controlled ways. Otherwise, uncontained incidents can cause more incidents. You also must build in failure modules. Like the previous example of Netflix, another example of resilience was during the Great Amazon reboot of 2014. 10% of the entire Amazon EC2 server fleet had to be rebooted to apply an emergency Zen security patch. Because of all the Chaos Monkey exercises, they were prepared. Netflix experienced zero downtime during the reboot. No one from Netflix was even in the office to work on active incidents. Next slide. Institute game days in order to rehearse failures. Specific disaster recovery rehearsals are called game days. Kind of like any kind of sport. You want to practice everything you know. You want to do drills over and over again. You want to practice your instrument over and over before the concert. The concept comes from discipline of resilience engineering. Services should continue to operate when failures occur without manually intervening or crisis. The goal is to help simulate and rehearse accidents to practice and prepare. At Amazon, they would power off a facility without notice and then let the systems fail naturally and allow the people to follow their processes wherever they led. This exposed the latent defects in their system. This makes more resilient services and an assurance that we can resume operations when inopportune events occur. Because you can plan for an event all you want, but you can never plan when they happen. This creates more learning and more resilient organizations. It also allows people to learn who to call and know who to talk to during catastrophic events. This allows people to develop relationships with people in other departments so they can work together during an incident. And this creates an overall organizational cohesion. In conclusion, creating a just culture allows learning in organizations when accidents occur. Blameless post-mortems and injecting production failures reinforce a culture so people feel comfortable with and responsible for surfacing and learning from failures. Don't be afraid to own up to your mistakes. They can make your production line better. As the number of accidents is reduced, tolerance of what is considered an accident is decreased, and a company will become stronger. Sources, images via Google, a couple websites there, and shout out to you, Chon. We love you, we miss you, always in our hearts.
Perfect.
The end.
The end.
So,
Yeah.
End.